So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We have with us our eminent panel who's here to address the very interesting discussions we've just spoken about. I have the pleasure of inviting Kumar Ravi, who is the CISO with Teleperformance India. Thank you, Kumar, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Kachi. Thanks, everyone.
I would also like to welcome Ambrish Singh, CISO for Godrej Boise. Thank you, Ambrish, for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ambrish. And we also have with us Vineet Sinha, Director of Cybersecurity at Mastercard.
Thank you so much, Kanchi, for inviting me.
Thank you. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to put the first question forward. And the first one that I have for you is that, we've seen there is a transition of traditional businesses that are now accelerating the focus on adoption of a secure, agile, digital business model. Kumar, your top 3 suggestions to business leaders who wants to establish a secure digital first business.
Sure. Thanks, Kachi. I hope I'm audible well to everyone. Okay, great. So yes, Kachi, I think that's very rightly, you said that nowadays, I think the way digital transformation is happening and the way, the pace at which the adoption is happening and the businesses are being set up. I think it's important that information security angles are addressed right from the beginning, because I think in my understanding, the way I see is that, the time and effort while what you spend is directly proportional to the time lag that you have between the security by design and then security putting it as a bolt-on. So I think it is the time that, while the accelerated adoption and I would say productionization of IT is happening, the security is taken as like a core fundamental layer rather than having it like applied at a afterthought. So I think that's the first thing, it has to be there. Then I think from a CISO's point of view, the strategy should be that, the technologies that you put in or the frameworks that you design, they are no longer only have to be, defensive based. They have to be with an offensive security mindset, because I think now is the time when you cannot just be sitting and assuming that, things will not happen or just setting up a good firewall is good enough. I think it is a time for you also to test your environment by doing self-penetration testing or a red teaming kind of exercises to see if you're penetratable or not. So that's the second thing. And third thing, I think very much you have to be considerate about, the latest technology trends which are coming in, like, cloud adoption, we all have seen is happening at a very fast pace, the adoption of digital technologies. I think your cybersecurity strategy has to deal with all those issues and nuances, and not only deal with it, but you have to leverage also all those newer technologies that are coming into your cybersecurity strategy. So I think broadly, very broadly, you could say I covered it all, but I think these are broad 3 areas that are very much, I think, relevant, or dimensions that have to be, taken care of.
It's actually very nicely put in that capsule. So I'm going to come to you, Ambrish. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I like what Kumar said. I agree with it. I'll add on. See, you adopt a newer technology, you have to manage the change well, because the certain way organization has been doing certain way, right? So you bring a new technology, you have to ensure that the people and processes, the skills which you need to manage those new technologies and processes are available, and processes are defined, and then probably you're stitching this people, process, technology together, so they are complementing each other. Second piece is, if you're leveraging, look at what are the opportunity for the digital transformation, and you're managing that change well, and looking at what is the business outcome, how it is tightly coupled with the business, and then you're ensuring that while you are on the journey of transformation, you're ensuring that cybersecurity piece is a basic element, it is taken care of. Otherwise, suppose you do a cloud migration and you don't understand the cloud, correct? And you don't understand how your entire effort was till yesterday, it was on-prem, it did bunch of security measures, but your entire application, etc., is going on cloud, and you're not able to protect the data, the breach could happen. Okay, so those are my initial thoughts.
Very well, articulated, Amrish. Thank you very much. Vineet, I'd like to bring this to you. What are your thoughts around the entire layering of security as the first element while we embark onto a digital transformation?
So I think Ravi and Ambrish have touched upon some of the critical piece. You have to understand, and I think Ravi touched upon that this is a journey. You may not be able to hit it in one go. If you think that your organization would be secured once you have implemented the controls, this might not hold true. It's an evolving journey. The more you expand based on the infrastructure, the environment that you carry across, the suppliers that you are connecting, the suppliers whom you are connecting with, who are providing services to you, you have to adequately adjust your control framework. You have to enhance them to meet the specific business objective requirements, and then you have to move forward. Today, even if you see in the industry, a lot of these organizations, whether it's big, small, they still have small challenges like so patch management, antivirus update not happening. Some pieces you will see that USB ports are not blocked. Right? These are concerns, and these are concerns which is not only for a small sector organization, but for a big organization also. They might not have that set of they might have a policy, they might have a process in place to really manage some of these pieces, but there might be certain glitches, obviously. And this could be because of people, it could be because of the adoption of the processes, because of the technology. So as rightly pointed out by Ambrish and Ravi, I think it's a continuous journey where you need to continuously focus. Now, whether you are hosting some of your systems application on the cloud, whether you're hosting your system applications within the environment on an on-prem setup, the control framework have to exist. The measures that you need to take, whether you have to create a threat hunting platform, whether you have to embed something like a threat intelligence framework into your organization, whether you need to embed some kind of a malware analysis program, based on organization to organization, based on the investment that you can put in for your organization, you have to take that decision and evolve. So again, it might not be one silver bullet for every organization, but you have to prioritize what is the data that you're targeting to protect, what is the end objective that you're trying to protect of your organization, and that is how you should be actually looking at evolving.
Got it. Thank you, Vineet. So I'm going to come back to something that Ambrish mentioned. And Ambrish, you spoke about people, processes, and technology, and the entire transformation journey being something that all three, these three are the important pillars for the transformation to happen. And we've seen that security, by and large, traditionally organizations used to think about it as an outside-in exercise, but eventually we're learning that it is more of an inside-out approach. What is it that you think requires, would be the first kind of steps that somebody would need to take to secure the organization from within?
Yeah, so I think you touched upon a very right point. Traditionally, if you talk about traditional organization, right, you think that you protect organization from the outside in perspective, correct? And security world, we keep saying that insider threat, right? Weakest link is the employee, correct? Disgruntled employee can do anything. Insider threats are, majority of the breaches happen due to the insider threats. The weakness is, phishing is the one of the most common attack which happens today, to which the ransomware etc. happens, because the weakest link is the your strongly is as your security is so strong as your employees are aware. We keep saying that. Okay, see, NIST cyber security framework talks about like identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Okay, if we talk about a lot of studies also says traditionally a lot of people have put a lot of technology and processes and focus on the identifying and protect. The protection was the main criteria. You protect your organization, right? And once their protection fails, they are flat. So NIST cybersecurity talks about if you put the right technology at each layer of the 5 pillars: identify, protect, respond, and recover. Probably correct? And if your processes are aligned to it, even if you get breached, see, anyone can get breached, no matter how much money you put in and how much technology. But it is important that how quickly you are able to get up, you contain the damage, are able to come to the BAU activity. So that shows your resilience and how much processes and incident response, your maturity of those processes, etc. Okay. Now, second piece is the awareness. Cybersecurity awareness is the key to the cybersecurity initiative. Okay. No matter you put the best of the technology, best of the DLP solution, and bunch of other solutions, if people are not aware, ransom will breach into your security because they'll come via phishing, they'll come via something else, and people will keep doing that mistake. Okay. Third thing is, as a CISO, we need to, if your CISO for traditional organization like me, okay, I come from new age organization, Flipkart. Now I am in Godrej, right? You need to tell the management that what is the the cybersecurity landscape. Probably they're not exposed to, right? They don't know what things are happening outside. Bring that, make them aware of how the things are going wrong in the world, what is relevant to your organization. And then, as Vineet was saying rightly, it is a multi-year journey. Okay, we all talk about today zero trust. Okay, the zero trust, Vineet was also talking about, silver bullet, right? We all, as a CISO, we want to be aspirationally, we want to reach zero trust, but every organization at different stage of achieving the zero trust model. Okay, and it is a multi-year journey because a lot of technologies, they are talking to each other. They need to complement each other. And that is a very tedious task to achieve because a lot of technology don't talk to each other. First thing. Second thing, your processes has to be matured enough, right? They are complementing each other. You need to have right skills. Okay. And Vinith was talking about the critical element of third-party security assessment, due diligence, etc. Who is your own employees? Who is your third-party employee? What kind of assets are accessing your applications, etc. Those needs to be looked at very holistically because your landscape is changing very drastically. Okay, if you are in manufacturing other world, you have on-prem infrastructure, you have cloud, you have IoT world, OT world, CIoT, etc. Okay, so in nutshell, we need to look at security very holistically and then build your roadmap accordingly. Yeah.
Thank you. So from the people, from the processes, I'm now going to move to the technology side. And while we are doing the entire, revamp of business processes and, the whole going to different technology elements, Kumar, I'd like to come with you with, the balance around cloud operating models and the pervasive adoption of hybrid cloud. How do you ensure data privacy, security, and all this while keeping resilience and agility at the top?
Sure, Kanchi, thanks. So I think, yes, you're right. I think as the organizations are moving towards cloud in their cloud adoption journey, I think the security is something that, kind of is a primary concern for the CISOs. But I think, apparently, when you move to the cloud, one of the very fundamental thing that you tend to lose out on is the visibility, because while things are there in your own data center, you have physical boundaries around those. How many systems are there. Largely they were physical, but yeah, over the period, even your own data centers have virtualized a lot. But still, you have kind of a layer of devices that you have put, and you can see those layers. When you move to the cloud, I think the visibility becomes the most important challenge. And as they say, what you can't measure, you can't control. So I think the visibility of the inventory becomes the first point that has to be taken care of very well. And more importantly, before you go on to your cloud adoption journey, what you need to make sure is that you have a cloud adoption framework which takes care of security by design, and it inbuilds the security practices again right from the front rather than bolt on. Then there are various other kind of considerations that come into play, that should you go with the native cloud service provided, security features or controls or services, or you should, stick to your own favorite or, sophisticated and dedicated brands who have been your very loyal partner into the cybersecurity journey. Because believe me, because of various reasons, the dilemma becomes like, very pertinent, and you have to really make a, good choice. So I think these are the kind of few things that I would say which you need to deal with. And apart from that, the architecture, coming on to the very technical part of the cloud journey, when you set up your cloud account, when you set up your cloud instances and the various zones, you need to be very well versed with what architecture you are going to put in. Again, the same problem when you are in-house, you were living with the DNZ, the kind of LAN, and then layered firewall. The same thing, how you transparently put it over there, that becomes a challenge. The problem actually becomes a little bit more complicated when you have got hybrid. Some part of your data center is in cloud, some part is in your premises. And then further, if there are multi-cloud partners that you have because of, again, various reasons, because you don't want to put all your eggs into one basket, you kind of rely on to multi-cloud services, and then those complexities. So I think all these have to be very well dealt with. You need to have right set of people who understand the cloud technology, not only from a architecture perspective, but from a security architecture perspective, because you cannot really simply avoid or just shut your eyes on the cloud adoption part, because that's the future we all have seen. So I think the better would be the faster you are in the race, and rather than being a lagger, you're kind of a leader, where you kind of hire the right skill set, you hire the right architects for you, and then build in a secure adoption framework for your cloud journey. I think that's how you deal with this problem.
Well, that's actually very beautifully put together. And I'm going to now, with your permission, bring it to you, Vineet. So while we're on this adopting of cloud-based operating model, and obviously to help IT run smarter, faster, safer, and avoiding the firefighting mode, what exactly do you think would be the right mix in securing the mix of the cloud operating model, whether it's on-prem, whether it's hybrid, whether it's community, or public cloud?
I think that's what one of the biggest challenges that most of the CISOs today struggle. I think when you have an on-prem setup, you know what in controls you have put in, and you know what are the basic set of hardening and guidelines that you have put in for your system infrastructure and networks in the place. When you talk about environment which is a cloud, obviously some of these, like if you are going with a SaaS environment versus a PaaS environment versus infrastructure as a service, there are so many pieces, right? And then there are so many additional set of complexities added to each of these. SaaS, you have to see that your data is not shared with the other clients within the other organization which are there, which are being hosted on the same instance versus the databases which are connected. So I think it is getting very, very complex. And for that, I think the first piece that as a CISO that you need to understand is to understand about the data flow. What data that is flowing, what is the data that you're hosting on the cloud, and to what kind of a system and application. You need to have a very clear articulation about these pieces on your, you should have an inventory where you're marking and keeping all of those information intact so that you are aware as to what is happening. A lot of CISOs today, if you go and ask them, they would not even understand what kind of data is flowing through their systems and application, and what is the data flow that is happening, right? And what is the data that they are storing and where they are storing. They might not even understand that, okay, would be an instance which would be shared with some of the other customers also, or there would be a database which would be also be shared with some other customer. A lot of CISOs during their due diligence even do not have that information. Okay, so I think that's the primary basic which where you need to start. You need to start that if a root account is getting created, it has to be only one for the organization and not 100. The moment you create 100 of root accounts, you are into trouble. Then everybody will have their own set of privileges. They will be able to spine up their own set of instance, and they would be able to actually put up some application there. So you need to have one single root account where you need to start. So I think basics is something which is missing today. And I think that is where you need to start your journey. Once you have been able to fix up your basics, when you understand that you have the data flow, you know how the data is flowing, to which entity the data is flowing. If you have that information, then you should start putting your control frameworks into place. Now you should say, okay, for the infrastructure as a service, I need to ensure that these are 10 steps that needs to be followed. If it's a SaaS environment, I need to ensure that these are the set of best practices that I need to follow. If it's a platform as a service, these are the 10 steps. So if you have a clear articulation and you have the set of understanding about the data flow, then you will be able to assign the right set of team to manage that on the ground. If you say that a SaaS administrator or a security administrator would have access to the PaaS, I am sure he will mess up sometime. You need to define responsibility, give people the responsibility that, okay, your job is restricted to these 5 responsibilities only. You do not have to touch these application system. Your accesses are not granted on that. So I think that's how you need to specify your journey, and then let the evolution based on the application and system that are getting added into your organization infrastructure, let it evolve and you embark on your journey.
Thank you, Vineet. And that brings one more part into the perspective. When we speak about, the data flow and the data flow to begin with data at source. So Amrish, I'm going to come to you. There's a lot of IoT devices and a lot of automation that is happening. And in real time, there are devices that are remotely generating large volumes of data. What could an organization do to start securing data right at that source?
Yeah. So today's we all next generation people, we want everything automated, right? You want CCTV camera, everyone wants to see everyone mobile, correct? You want to have fridge, washing machine, you want to operate from AC, you want to operate from mobile. This is all happening via IoT. Okay. So if you look at IoT security holistically, you're talking about security from chip to cloud. It means IoT has the firmware, and it has got a mobile application. Then there's the connectivity part, and then the web application, and there is the infrastructure. Okay. If you are stitching all of these together, the chip to cloud security we talk about in IoT, if you want to ensure the complete holistically the security of the data, and you look at what are the vulnerabilities we have, what are the open ports, etc. You need to look at holistically. Okay. The first thing. Second thing, you need to understand what kind of controls you have, like on cloud. Like suppose people want to see their video recording on mobile, right? So video recording is being rendered from one of the cloud service provider. Okay. What kind of controls you have to onboard a device? Okay. Is there any way somebody can morph somebody else's device ID and probably you'll be able to see that? What kind of binding you have with the user and with the device? Okay. And then third thing is the alert mechanism. If there is a malicious activities going on, do you have a right mechanism to get that, to find out that and somebody watching that? So I'm talking about SOC. So is there your IoT, what your service is providing to the customer as a IoT platform? Like I talked about bunch of products, correct? Is this being monitored by somebody? Okay, something going wrong. Do you have incident response process around it? Because your entire product is people are buying based on the trust they see. If this is my recording, only I will see. Okay, it should not happen that somebody is seeing somebody else recording. It's a lot of privacy issues. Okay, those things, and probably we need to look at the whole this framework security guideline, firmware security guideline. Okay, a second thing, the application security comes into very, very handy. If you have I talked about basic, Vinith was talking about basic infrastructure, right? Application security guideline, defense in depth, security by design. It means if your developers are educated, they're following your application security guideline. You're talking about defense in depth security by design. Okay, so that when you go for you're about to go live, your security vulnerability are very, very minimal. Your time to go live is very fast. That's why right now people talk about SecDevOps, automated, etc. Right? Because they want new age organization. They were going live with various features. They want to go live every day. Correct? So they want to remove that friction. They want to automate as much as possible and reduce the time to go live. Okay. I'm talking about if you have the basic hygiene in place, probably if you're thinking about holistically from chip to cloud, probably able to, you'll have more visibility. You'll be able to monitor things. You'll be able to improve things. What I think Kumar was also talking about. If you're not able to visualize, you're not able to monitor, you'll not be able to improve also. Yeah, so those are my initial thoughts.
So touching upon SOC, And when we talk about SecOps and automation around it, we're barely scratching the surface. But I'd like to come to you, Vineet, to understand what are some of the best practices around this, and what are the imperatives for SecOps automation?
See, DevSecOps itself is a journey, like any other pieces that we have talked about so far. I think DevSecOps is again a whole world in itself, right? I think the adoption of DevSecOps was because of one simple reason: to bring the development team, the IT team, the security team, and the operations team all together on one single bucket. What we used to happen in the past, while there was any kind of a code that was getting developed during the agile model, it was a somebody used to create it, used to send it to the client used to get back a response, then you have to hold it, and then once the clients approves it, then you again reiterate, resend it back, get an approval, and there were multiple phases and processes which were there happening in between.
No.
That was substantially been reduced because of the agile model. Okay, where was one prototype was been created, was given to the client gives a go ahead, and then probably it was in a push to production. I think, but again, with this, lot of these startups, a lot of these fintech organizations, a lot of the banking organization really saw a demand that these kind of processes that we are following, which is the agile, the water flow, may not work from a long-term perspective because we need to spin up application today. The client wants it, the requirements are there. If in case there is one single bug, it has to be get solved today rather than waiting for years and years to get that resolved. That is where the adoption of DevSecOps especially happened, and it has evolved. It has evolved over a period of time. There are steps, 8 steps process, and I think I don't want to get into too much into depth on that. But I think there are a lot of components which are attached. You need to start with planning. There are so many. So today, I might not discard the effort that have been put by the developers today, but I think a lot of these source codes are available over GitHub, right? Or many other channels, right? Developers just go there, pick up that piece, integrate into their system, see if in case it's helping them or not, go ahead and process it. Now, they you may not be realizing the fact that while these codes are been just been picked up from there, they may have security issues or challenges. There could be some bugs. There are so many libraries today which you need to integrate into your application to make it function. There are web services which you need to integrate into your application so that you are able to well establish connectivity with 10 different clients across to get the right set of information for your application. I think the complexity have evolved. Now, how do we handle that complexity? You have to look at again each of the parameters in by parameters. Okay, you have to start by vulnerability management to manage the source code. You have to start with authentication, which is your identity and access management to manage your authentication and authorization piece, and likewise. So as I was saying, that it's a journey. Okay, the journey have to be again put through that those 8 steps that we are talking about. How are you going to actually integrate that each of these steps and validate that the controls that you are putting are functioning at all point of time? Now, again, like we know, and Ravi and Abrish talked about that cloud is something which is a problem, right? There are so many complexities which are there in the cloud. Again, it's the same piece for the DevSecOps. Where are we hosting these? We are hosting it on the cloud, right? To enhance, to make it even more faster. Now that's where the challenges start. That the struggle was initially that we don't have the understanding about cloud itself. We were struggling to fix up cloud pieces, right? The basic piece parameters that were there around cloud. Now you have added another layer on top of it, which is an application getting developed on the cloud. You just understand the kind of vibration or the velocity of challenges that are out there for a CISO to really resolve. Again, I'm not there to highlight only the challenges. I think the important is that we need to resolve some of these pieces. So again, you have to pick up each of these pieces on the fly. There are containers, there are container registries, there are applications, there are your application frameworks which are there that you're maybe following. There are web services. So for each framework pieces, you cannot just have a manual control. So you have to automate. And for automation, you need to have solutions, tools, which can help you integrate and provide you more realistic output in terms of what are the challenges that are there on the ground. So I think security or SecOps automation is very critical in a journey. But again, it depends upon the evolution phase that you are in. Do you think that you need to really get an application up and running every day? Obviously, then you need to have a SecOps automation framework in place. If you see that, no, I am doing, let's say, one bi-weekly or a weekly application update on using the framework, and then probably I have to manage it on, I think you do not need a DevSecOps. I think manual process will also work for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Vineet, for highlighting those points. So I'm going to now come to Kumar, and when we're talking about everything together in terms of a displaced workforce, where we're managing identity and access management, and when you put all of these together, it is a highly complex environment that we're dealing with. And in this complex environment, we have this whole new concept of zero trust architecture. How does it make, how does that make security more evolved? And how do you orient this largely displaced workforce into believing into this concept of security?
Okay, thank you, Kanchi. I think that's a very, very vast question that you have put. Let me see how I can, still put it all together. So I think there is, a section that you touched upon onto the remote, workforce or a hybrid environment, and then you talked about, sorry, I missed the second part of it. What was the second part, Kanchi?
About zero trust architecture and
zero trust architecture. Yes. Thank you. So I think zero trust, as we all understand, it's not a technology. It's more of a framework. It's more of an approach, right? Which largely has 2-3 things which are the core components part of it. It's like and where it is relevant also. So I think as part of the zero trust, I think largely 2-3 things that we look at is that there are no physical boundaries and you can't trust anyone, and hence the name zero trust. Obviously it's not a zero trust, but it's like establishing the trust at every level or repeatedly. So I think when we talk about zero trust, core identity management is very much important part of it, and along with that, secure authentication. Segmentation, network segmentation, micro segmentation could be seen as another enabler of the zero trust. And then I would say setting up multiple layer of securities also constitutes the zero trust of it. So the idea is you don't trust whether a person is sitting inside or outside. You have kind of I would say arrangement of authentication, authorization, or the privilege management based on a person could come in from anywhere. It no longer it's like a castle and moat. It's more of like working from anywhere concept. So I think very largely highlighted the need of a zero trust model kind of a thing along with the pandemic, because I think everybody went outside. There was no BNM models. Everybody went into WFA or WFH, that is work from anywhere or work from home. So I think all these concepts became all the way more important. Now, how do you build that? Like I said, I think you definitely have to have good identity and privilege management concepts built in, the relevant tools, technologies, and more importantly, the processes around, the identity management has to be seen, because most of the technologies would fail if there are no strong processes, that hold all those technologies together. You have to have right level of segmentation. You have to have multi-factor authentication. You have to have adaptive, authentication mechanism in place, because again, you want to maintain a balance between the security as well as, the convenience for the user. You cannot have every user giving, two-factor authentication every 1 hour, obviously. So I think all those things have to be very much kept in mind when you design the kind of model which is based on zero trust architecture and managing the hybrid operating environment where the world is now leading to. I don't think so we would ever be able to now take a U-turn and say no, it's all gonna be the older days before 2020. So I think the strategy, the solutions, the processes all have to be in tandem with the direction that people are not going to come back completely, and you have to stitch your processes around in such a way that it's not only convenient but also it is making the I would say, a workforce more productive. To name a few examples, I think the virtualization, even at the endpoint, is something which has become very popular. Like desktop as a service or VDI technologies, thin laptops. Companies have stopped giving the laptops, the actual ones, with hard disk and RAM. They're now giving thin laptops through which they can just connect to their Citrix. I have seen organizations going a leap forward where even if people are sitting within the office, they are still given like a thin laptop or a thin desktop with VDI. And even to connect to the company networks, they would not be having endpoints, but like a thin endpoints. And then there are merits. The merit is you don't have to manage the endpoint compliance. On a typical endpoint, you have at least 7 to 8 security controls or the IT control agents which are sitting. Think of it, you totally eliminate the need of it. Your endpoint compliance all of a sudden is not a function of now percentages, but it's a matter of applicable or not applicable. You don't have endpoint, you don't need to put any EDR, you don't need to put any antivirus. So I think that's the futuristic direction that you have to take and you have to design along with ZT and other technologies, that how do you cut down the threat surface of the endpoint, which has been very prominent area of late, especially when people moved into the work from anywhere environment. And then it's like a vast topic. Ajay, I'll take a pause here.
No, absolutely. I can totally understand that. Yes, we're just there at the surface of things and taking a top-down view into this. And I do have an eye on the clock, so we're just a few minutes away from the closing of the panel. So I quickly want to come to each one of you, and this is going to be like a very rapid answer that I want from you. We're leapfrogging into the future, and challenges of the new generation are coming forward to CISOs and BPOs. What is your guidance in one word or one sentence when you think about delivering security at scale?
Yeah, so I'll go first.
Sure.
So I keep saying, I'll say again, whatever we are doing today, think about the larger picture of achieving zero trust. Think about how this is going to achieve, how this steps in the city you are doing, how this is going to contribute or converge towards zero trust. Okay, as Ravi was talking about, zero trust is journey, but it will start what we are doing today. It is going to matter tomorrow. And second piece, focus on your basic security element. Don't forget about it. Your basics are strong. You're able to build a very strong building. Third thing is give a lot of emphasis on the cybersecurity awareness program. Otherwise, probably we keep doing until unless you don't get the buying in from the employees. Their business doesn't understand what is cybersecurity, what is zero trust, what is the importance. You will be a lone person who is talking about security. Others will just say, hey, this guy keeps talking about security and he keeps doing some projects every year. So that just I wanted to put that point.
Absolutely. Vineet, from you.
I think within Mastercard, we keeps on saying that, and then that's what is a mantra for us within the organization, that consider an organization like your home. You have to understand the inside out environment. You have to understand the outside in environment. And based on that, you have to actually manage your security framework.
Absolutely. Very well, encapsulated. Kumar, I'll come to you with that. Your thoughts.
Sure, Kachi. So I think, my advice or my vision or thought process around cybersecurity and information security of it has been that, it should not be an afterthought. It's an old principle, but I think as more and more you see the new threats coming in, I think I see the more importance into it. So the security should not be an afterthought. It should not be a bolt-on process. And the more delay that you do in thinking that, okay, I should also take care of security, in securing this, I think you would be spending more time and money as it is directly proportional. I mentioned earlier also. So I think that's what is my advice for, the organizations. I think security should be more of a DNA. It should be more of a culture rather than a patch or a bolt-on thing.
Well, that kind of sums it up. Thank you very much, Kumar. Thank you, Vineet. Thank you, Amrish, for joining us at this panel. There's a lot of food for thought on the table with our discussion that we've just had and some very powerful insights coming from the three of you. Thank you once again for joining us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move forward into our next session. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you.